And I find myself when the music comes up, and I love how it starts off very dreamy like, and
Right.
then the rhythm comes in. And so I was just thinking, what was he thinking about when he's like, okay, I'm gonna be, kind of, smooth, and then I'm gonna come with this da 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 bop,
Mhm.
da 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 bop, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting hype, and then you hear
Wow.
more things, instruments coming in, and you're like, okay, then we have I feel like the solo is the keys
The synth.
when
Yeah, yeah,
everything is synth. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
Well,
I
I'm a musician first. Like
mhm,
that's so I start off. It's a ride. It is always going to be some type of structure, some intro, take you on a ride, take you on a journey, as they say. So I love intros and breakdowns and hype stuff. And then sometimes I like to show I'm not just an R&B cat because I got labeled and pegged as he just plays the piano and he's a balladeer. I'm sort of a hip hop head too. It was a hip hop era when we grew up,
right,
so I like
exactly.
beats and I like it to hit. You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah,
right,
it's okay.
right.
I'll
Yeah,
find somebody that'll understand that,
it
but
gets
this is
it.
kind
Yeah.
of no, and that's the name of it. Get it?
Yeah, that's it. Get it. Yeah, that's
I
right.
know. That's a flashback from, I want to say now, going back almost 5 years. Welcome to another edition of Interludes Extra Presents Talk on Tuesdays. I'm your host, Val the Voice Johnson. And the music that is produced is done by my cousin. His name is Kendall Nesbitt. And that was just kind of a flashback of him giving a breakdown of how he put it together. And because I started this show of the Interludes podcast in June, I have been attached to the whole theme of Black Music Month for a long time. And so I'm just really excited to just get going and letting you guys know what's been up. And of course, today I'm just taking a look at Black Music Month. Now, last week we did house music. Well, this week we're doing R&B. Good gracious. R&B is so large. I am definitely going to forget some people. People are going to be like, well, what about this crooner? What about that crooner? What about this person that sings like that? Can I remember everybody? Probably not, but it's okay. And I'm going to do what I can to keep you guys going because R&B is one of my favorite genres of music. So with that, I say let's get going right about now. It's another edition of Interludes Extra Presents Talk on Tuesdays, and I'm excited that you guys are joining me on this terrific Tuesday. We're halfway through the year. I don't know where the year went. It disappeared. I don't know where it disappeared to. But I'm excited, and of course, I could say that you could go order the ebook, but you know what? It's always good to stop sharing and letting you guys know that no, guys, you guys can order the book, which means I'll be signing this bad boy. That's right. This is a full book. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful to number one, my writing mentor. This is Monique Lisa Johnson, who helped me write this book now going on 2 years ago. It was released last year, almost 1 year ago for the ebook. And I want to thank everyone who purchased I want to call it the original, what am I trying to say? The ebook, but now you have the real book. So go ahead and visit the store at purelightHousemedia.com and /store. And you could see all of these wonderful things. And of course, when you become an author while you're also producing a show, That's a lot right there, I tell you. Oh my goodness. And of course, patreon.com. Some of you guys have gone ahead and you're subscribed and you're watching and you're listening and you're seeing some of the things we're doing behind the scenes. And of course, we always have a blast behind the scenes. So of course, join us, patreon.com/interludes. And of course, new posts go up just about every week, especially the newer audio podcast, which I'm starting to get going back on that again. I am so happy about being able to do that. And then of course, we have it's Black Music Month, and we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. And of course, I'm just going to ask some questions, and you guys are going to let me know what you all think about some things. Now, here's the question I have for you. Now, over the weekend, there were two awards shows that happened, one on Sunday and then one on last night. And usually the one that comes on last night, that would be the BET Awards. Usually that's later in the month. I have no idea why BET decided they wanted to move it up, but that's okay. But I think I want to deal first of all with, did you all watch the Tony Awards? Now, Coach Tony, if he was here, he would say it's all about him. And of course, we want to thank you guys for following Coach. He wants to personally thank you guys for following him on Instagram. So if you guys are watching this on his Instagram, he's there. You guys can scan that QR code and go ahead and join his team. And like I said, we usually post over there as well. Well, what happens with the Pull Up Podcast show, but I'm excited that you guys are doing your thing and we're doing our thing as well. So did you get a chance to watch the Tony Awards? Did anyone watch that? I unfortunately missed the live broadcast of it all. I wanted to see it. And when I found out that Cynthia Erivo, who won a Tony back in 2016, was going to be hosting, I said, well, let me see what she is going to do, because I am just over the moon with it. Now, this is the 78th annual Tony Awards. If you guys are privileged enough to have, what is that called? Paramount Plus, which works like Disney Plus, which works like Netflix, which works like all of the other streaming services, you're able to see the Tony Awards on there. And of course, they debuted. This was in New York, of course, handing out some of the best, the Tonys, to the folks that won. But what I want to point out most definitely is who, and I'm trying to figure out where Cynthia is. There's Cynthia. Cynthia Erivo was phenomenal in opening and closing the show. They gave her the hosting duties, and she decides she wants to get things started in a gospel mode, where I saw singers come up being directed by a director, and they got their on, this is the reason why we sing, and we welcome you to the Tonys. I was like, go ahead, Miss Cynthia, get your sing on. Now, let me just be honest. I've been a huge fan of Cynthia Erivo for a long minute. That's Audrey McDonald, who was nominated for a couple of things for the Tonys this year, and she just had a good laugh because in the song, I think probably Cynthia wrote, she mentions Audrey, and Audrey is just kind of the queen and the belle of the Tonys. I think she has won about 6 Tonys for acting. So I'm just telling you, the choir came down the aisle and then they came on stage and joined Cynthia. This is floating around under the Tony Awards with CBS networks. Just go check it out. If you don't have Paramount Plus, please check out Cynthia Erivo's Open as well as Close. She used the song from that made popular by Dreamgirls. And I'm telling you, I'm not going. But then she switched the words around and said that you are at the Tonys and you won a Tony. And I said, how did she rhyme that up like that? So Wicked, which was wonderful, that came out Universal Pictures last year. The sequel is coming out this year. I already saw the trailer for that. just brilliantly brilliant. I was just over the moon excited about what she did. And of course, there's a choir surrounding her and she says, "Welcome to the Tonys." And she's singing and it's a big production. So, but it just sounded very gospel to me. So I was loving every part of it. Now, of course, I don't know how many people are fans of, I want to call it Hamilton. Hamilton was produced back in 2014, 2015. And so what happened on the Tony stage on Sunday was a reunion. Lin-Manuel was there along with all the other players, major players with the Tony Awards, with the Hamilton soundtrack. I literally just listened to the Hamlet sound, the Hamlet. Oh gosh, why am I tripping over my words? The Hampton soundtrack over the weekend with a good friend of mine. We were listening to that on the way back. Thanks a lot, Princess. She reminded me how much I did not want to miss my shot in listening to the soundtrack. So I believe it's coming back to Broadway. It is coming back to Broadway. And Andrea DeBose, she was a part of the ensemble. And she just stayed a part of the ensemble, but she has won an Oscar for her acting in the revival of West Side Story. So she was there on stage in her ensemble role. The camera kind of zoomed in on her, and I'm like, is that Andrea? Is that her? I'm just telling you, you guys, this was such a fun show, and I'm hoping to go back and check out the full show. But based on what I checked out, this was fun. I am looking forward to the reunion of Hamilton on stage. Those the sisters, there they are doing their singing. I mean, I really had fun checking those guys out. So of course, if you're a fan of Hamilton, this was something to definitely make sure that you got a chance to go ahead and view. Now, check this out here. Now, I was really happy to hear about, now I wanted to get the pictures for it, but I didn't get it. The Tonys, they gave out about 26 awards in 26 different categories, competitive categories, according to Vanity Fair. And one best play went to Purpose. And that was written by Brandon Jacob Jenkins. And then also best performance by a featured actress in a play went to Carrie Young. I was looking for those photos. I couldn't grab them fast enough. And do you know it premiered here in Chicago at the Steppenwolf Theater in 2023-24? So right now it's currently the 2025 Pulitzer Prize for Best Drama. And on Broadway, I am excited to announce that play Purpose is going to be there until August 31st. So if you're in New York, all of my people that are there in New York, if you want to check out Purpose, please do so. And of course, why am I so concerned or happy about Purpose? Well, it was a directorial debut of Felicia Rashad. And of course, you guys know her better as Claire Huxtable. We'll just say that, Claire Huxtable. And I see Mr. Springer is in the building. Thank you so very much for being here, Mr. Springer. Yes, I'm holding it down because I believe Coach is actually coaching right now. And a wonderful Queen Bella got a chance to see it, and she said the Tony Awards was a great show. It was great production, great everything. I was watching things in clips, and I'm so grateful now. If you missed the direct broadcast of an award show, all you have to do is go to the YouTube channel or go to your streaming service that carries it and watch it there. Now, I watched it in parts with YouTube commercials. I was okay with that. I was definitely okay with that. And you know what? I want to make sure that I get the picture up because I was looking for the Purpose cast. And what I'll do is I'll show you a picture of Brandon Jacob Jenkins. And he's the one that won for Best Play. This was really, really cool. Let me go ahead and bring this up. And he has been writing for a good long while. And so congratulations to the entire cast, Felicia Rashad for directing, and then also Carrie Young for winning a Best Actress featured in a play. There were some other major winners from the Tonys. And of course, because I try to keep my ear to the ground when it comes to the Tonys, and I know it always shows up, during June. But here's the thing, because I used to actively go and watch things on Broadway because I lived there in New York, it was okay, well, what's fun? What's playing? What is something that I would be interested in? What is something, that's going to make me, worth seeing some of the great plays and some of the great writing. And see, here's the thing, the playwright is king. Playwright is queen. You get some good dialogue, good blocking, good words, and you have yourself a great play. And so I am just excited to go ahead and go ahead and share that with you guys. So let me go ahead and stop sharing that. But yeah, man, I had a blast. Now look, we're gonna be covering R&B tonight. Seriously covering R&B. And I wanted to just kind of find out from the audience who's some of your favorite groups. Think about it. If you had a favorite group, who would be some of your favorite R&B groups? Now let me specify. We're staying in the rhythm and blues section of the record store. The rhythm and blues section of the record store. That's where we're staying at. Well, I will share this. I did a little bit of research and found out that if you do, I want to call it a purview of the top selling or the most popular, well, we didn't call them boy bands, but male singers, male groups, especially in R&B, the Temptations is usually at the top of the list. Now, of course, they started recording in the late 50s, early 60s. They were on Motown. And of course, just kind of uniting a country and literally just talking about those things. Now, of course, Kevin Springer just mentioned that he loves the Four Tops. Same deal. I think they were with Motown as well, and definitely did. They were always dressed very classy. The Ed Sullivan Show. I think there was the Tonight Show back in the 60s. Keep in mind, I wasn't around. Were you around? I'm not sure. Were you born? I don't know. But yes, the Temptations was one of the groups that was considered, I'm talking the best of the best. And of course, I needed to come to my era, the time that I was crazy about a boy band. Well, here's one of my other favorites, and that's New Edition. Now, let me show you all something. Now, there they are. Recently, they just finished up their Las Vegas performance tour. They didn't tour anywhere. They just stayed in Las Vegas and performed. But here's the thing. I have something that a lot of people don't have, especially if you are someone that likes records. Yes, you are looking at this correctly. Do not adjust your television, or do not adjust your YouTube. This is the New Edition. This is the record that came out in 1988, and I bought it. Is the record still in here? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And this is when we had lyric sheets and additional photos. And oh my goodness, Tony would be so proud. The original record. I was a huge fan of New Edition, and I followed their career. I thought when they first came out that they were the Jacksons. I thought they were the Jackson 5. I thought they were the New Edition of the Jacksons. And so I unfortunately could not, Candy Girl sounded like Michael Jackson as a little kid, but I was thinking, no, Michael Jackson is grown. He's doing Billie Jean. Who are these kids? Based out of Boston. And of course, Johnny Gill joining them when they did their turn in doing Any Heartbreak. And to me, this is still one of my favorite all-around albums to listen to in its entirety because of all of the production work that was done by Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. I love this album. I bought it on CD, and I also bought it on cassette tape. I bought it on wax because, at the time I called myself trying to, doing my DJ thing. But yes, if we talk about groups, we talk about folks. That's Kevin said. That's right. New Edition at the time was dope. And of course, New Edition spun off a couple of groups. If we remember this, it was a solo act. You had Johnny Gill, you had Ralph Tresvant, and then you had Belle Biv DeVoe. They all came from, and then of course, I'm sorry, Bobby Brown. So you had all of those guys, spawn off and do their other things. So if we talk about a boy band or a R&B group that personified the music, especially in the mid to late 80s and early 90s, it was New Edition. And for all their fans that travel out to Vegas, that saw the show, I know you guys, man, oh man, this was the group for a lot of folks. Now, here's the thing. There are hundreds of other R&B groups that are phenomenal, but I wanted to kind of go back and forth between these two. Now, I don't know if you recognize them. On one side, you have the Isley Brothers, who started recording and releasing music in the late 50s. And then you have this other wonderful group called Mint Condition. And I don't know if you guys remember Mint Condition, Breaking My Heart, Pretty Brown Eyes. And then, of course, You Make Me Want to Shout. That was originally recorded by the Isley Brothers. I didn't know that. Oh my gosh, I had no clue. I had no clue that the Isley Brothers recorded that. But their music that they did in the late 60s, early 70s, they had a song called Fight the Power. So to me, that was kind of an homage to what was happening in the country at that time. We had unfortunately lost some of our leaders, Malcolm X. We had lost Dr. King, and then of course the rise of the Black Panther Party. So it was kind of that Fight the Power That Be. That was a big song for them. But then they tapped into their R&B. Now, a lot of us, let me just stop sharing real quick. A lot of us that was born in the 1970s are here because of the Isley Brothers. I just thought I would definitely let y'all know about that. Okay, back to what we were talking about. So can you name your favorite song by either one of these artists, from either the Isley Brothers or Mint Condition? Now, of course, instantly I could type this in, Pretty Brown Eyes. I was in college when that came out. That was one of my favorites from Mint Condition. And of course, Stokely. Oh my goodness. I saw them perform. It was a club called BB King's in New York. They did such a phenomenal job performing and doing their thing. The Isley Brothers I haven't seen live, but there are some viral videos going around showing Uncle Ron, and he is sitting down and performing, but not sounding real great. He's sounding okay, but not too great. But like I said, yeah, so Mark says definitely he remembers Mint Condition. And of course, like I said, Pretty Brown Eyes was one of my favorite songs from Mint Condition. Now, Coach was trying to give me some of his favorite boy bands or people that he liked. But of course, he was probably checking out the girls versus the guys. I was checking out the guys. Some other songs from the Isley Brothers, For the Love of You. And then there's a Voyage to Atlantis, one of my favorites. I'll always come back to you, one of my other favorites. And then there is the song that has been sampled so much. Yes, and Mark we were right there, man. You were right there with me. How much has Between the Sheets been sampled? Now, of course, you're thinking, well, who sampled that? I love that when they call me Big Papa. Yeah, we'll be doing hip hop next week. But Between the Sheets was sampled for that. And then, of course, Today Was a Good Day. That was Footsteps in the Dark, and that was the Isley Brothers. But like I said, a lot of people, probably even myself, is here because of the good music of the Isley Brothers. Now, Mint Condition, the full band experience. Stokely, the former lead singer of Mint Condition, is a drummer. And Mint Condition ended up being a studio band for a lot of the artists that came out in the 90s and 2000s. Let me just put that information on out there. And then, of course, I think Carrie Lewis, who was married to Tony Braxton, a keyboardist, like all of these gentlemen of Mint Condition were extremely and well talented. If you've ever seen them perform in person, you are in for a treat. And I started actively buying their CDs after they left their main record label. Now, I think when they first came out, they were under a record label, the same record label as Sound of Blackness, and that was the Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis. Now, of course, you know, I mentioned Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis when I talked about New Edition. So if I was to mention my favorite R&B producers, it would be Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Aha. Of course, Kevin Springer, he mentions the song Choosy Lover from Isley Brothers. Aha, exactly. That's another one. Has that been sampled? That has definitely been sampled in hip hop. A lot. You know, you have a great song when someone is trying to copy it and put their lyrics over it. And of course, I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Mark Shout, which was recorded, I think, in 1958, had no clue it was the Isley Brothers because it was in a different genre. It was rock. And Mint Condition, the other reason why that I bring them to the platform along with the Isley Brothers is that a lot of their music also had a rock sound too, because they were a band based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And so I'm just excited that you guys did that. And of course, yes, thank you so much for that reminder, Kevin. Aaliyah sampled Choosy Lover by the Isley Brothers, and then she also did a straight remake of, what was that? At Your Best, You Are Love. Y'all remember that song? Let me know, let me know. Now, we're not going to mention who produced it, but Aaliyah definitely, when you're doing remakes of people's songs, it's just imperative that you know what you're doing. And did Mint Condition ever do any remakes? I don't think so. But a lot of their original material is just really, really fun. And then, of course, You Don't Have to Hurt No More, Mint Condition. Yes, I remember that song as well. They had, and here's the thing, I think they had a string of hits or top 10 R&B songs between the early 90s to about the mid to late 90s. They were just coming out with good stuff. And then What Kind of Man Would I Be? I don't know if you all remember that. Michelle Thomas, who was a part of the Family Matters cast, I remember her being an actress featured in that music video with Mint Condition. Now back to the Isley Brothers. I remember with the Isley Brothers, oh my goodness, Ron Isley started to have a reemergence in like the 90s. He married Angela Winbush. They were married for a little bit, and she was producing some of his music. And then he connected with R. Kelly, and R. Kelly gave him a whole, character, calling him Mr. Biggs. So they recorded and did some things. And as much as we have issues with R. Kelly and what he's done and everything that he's accused of or what he's now serving time for, when it came to connecting and kind of pushing people out there, he really kind of gave a revise to Ron. And then he is actively now touring, as it's only two of them now, Ernie and Ron, the Isley Brothers, because I think unfortunately there's been a few of them that have unfortunately passed on. That's right. What Kind of Man Would I Be? Such a powerful and wonderful song. Let me get to the girls. I think if I think about this, oh, I'm so sorry. There was supposed to be another producer there, but probably Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. But when I think about some of the best musicians who have either produced for other folks or have recorded their own music, I think about Teddy Riley and I think about Stevie Wonder. Now, of course, Teddy Riley created a whole new subgenre of R&B called New Jack Swing. Of course, you guys remember that. Of course, you all remember New Jack Swing. But of course, for my youngins, that was that music that came out early 90s to about the mid 90s. And what was that? Rump Shaker, things that he recorded under Guy. What was the other one that I loved by him? And then also Blackstreet. I Like the Way You Work It, No Diggity, using Grandma's Hand, sampling that from Bill Withers. Like this was a producer that was able to kind of bring the old with the new. And I recently found out, unfortunately, with the passing of Roberta Flack, that Stevie Wonder did a lot of writing for her, Shaka Khan, Michael Jackson. He worked with Quincy Jones, Patty Austin, James Ingram. The list goes on and on of all of the folks that Stevie Wonder gave music to or produced or did stuff for. And it was good. We'll get to Stevie in a little bit as we talk a little bit about the, what do you call that? The BET Awards, because I definitely want to get to that. I want to get to the girl groups who I love, and then of course our new R&B folks that have been recently recording within the last 10 to 15 years. And let me make sure that I go ahead and do this. I wanted to make sure that as I talk about the BET Awards, and let me bring this up. And I'm looking for it right here. So, right. Did anyone watch the BET Awards? A lot of people don't watch the BET Awards at all. They think, oh my gosh, it's going to not be good. It's going to be horrible. But here's the thing. They're celebrating 25 years of the BET Awards. And then they decided they wanted to also celebrate one of their shows that had been around for a bit. You guys, do you all remember watching 106 in Park? Do you all remember that show? I was a fan of the show. I know the demographic was probably 10 years younger than me at the time, but they did a great job of focusing on music that came out in the 2000s. And there's one of the hosts of it, Free. And a lot of the hosts were there, except for it was blaringly clear, former host of 106 in Park, we didn't see AJ. We were looking for AJ, but we didn't. So they set up the stage like they did for 106 in Park, and they kept introducing folks to come and perform. And so Anne Marie, One Thing, that was such a hot song back in 2004, 2005 when it came out. It had a go-go beat to it, and then a lot of recent chatter about why she decided to step away from music, but she still got it. I saw Anne Marie, and she performed and did One Thing, and that's the only song she did. But there's a tiny desk concert that's about, I don't want to say 12 to 18 minutes featuring her, because what she's been doing she's been reviewing books and just spending time with her family. She hasn't really been doing anything in music. So it was really good to see her on the stage performing, and just, she let the dancers do a lot of the wiggling, but she did a few wiggles, and then she got to singing. There was Ashanti, who I think opened up as well. And I think this is Maya. She performed as well. And I think about all of these, I want to call it R&B singers that came out around this time, and they had like one or two, maybe about 5 hits, and then they went quietly away. And I'm like, well, what happened? Why did they go quietly away? T.I. performed. What you know about that? I know all about that. If you saw the audience last night, they lost their minds when this came out, and they had the camera kind of centered on Tyler Perry, and he was, I guess, trying to be all bad. And I was like, okay, this is definitely a Dirty South situation. So T.I. rocked the crowd, electrified the crowd with performing that. And I was just thinking that's hilarious. And of course, I mentioned that I love a new edition, but of course that generation's, and I want to call it the millennials, new edition was B2K. So they got up and performed and did their favorites, the favorite song, Bump, Bump, Bump. But these songs were popular and charted on 106 in Park. So that's the reason why a lot of those artists were invited to come and perform. Now, they said they should have had Sierra perform, because she topped and did a lot of stuff. That's Bow Wow. You can't call him little anymore. He's grown. A lot of the folks who were much younger, or in their teens or early 20s, they're now getting close to 40 or looking at it. So they came out and did their thing. I think Jermaine Dupri joined him on stage, and they did their thing. But like I said, it was good to see the 106 in Park thing come together and have all of these great performances. Now, they gave out Icon Awards. This is something I'm not familiar with. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Icon Awards, but I was thinking, I'm like, okay, well, how do you define an icon? And of course, according to BET.com, they said the Icon Award means that a person that has been contributing to music and who has made a difference in the culture. And so I said, okay, well, who are you guys giving it to? So they gave it to Snoop. Now, I was thinking to myself, I thought people fell out with Snoop. And remember, we covered that he did a gospel album, and he actually performed his medley of songs, and Dr. Dre presented him with an Icon Award. And I was just thinking, I was like, so I guess we're over it for him performing at the inauguration and doing some other things that we didn't like as a culture. But forgive and forget, and I guess we just let it sweep under the table. But here's the thing: he was in blue. I think his wife was with him, and he accepted his Icon Award. And I was just thinking, all right, well, I guess all is forgiven. Nobody dared boo. They were in Los Angeles, so you don't boo. You definitely don't do that. But I think the night, and I'll mention this as well. The other three people that got Icon Awards, and I'm going to bring this up real quick right now, was Mariah Carey and Kurt Franklin. Now, I would agree with these choices. Mariah Carey has, I don't know how, in her catalog, how many songs does she have in her catalog? And here's the thing: there's music that she's done that's been R&B-ish, and then it's just straight pop with Mariah. She crossed the charts and charted #1 on the pop charts a lot of times. I see Mark is saying 106 in Parks was taped at the Carolina Theater in Durham years ago. I can imagine because sometimes they would film there in New York, and then there would be in other spots as well. And oh my goodness, Mark, you're bringing out some other good girl groups. We're going to get to those in a minute, and to our girl groups. But yeah, and then Kurt Franklin was another person who was honored for an icon. Now, he gave a very emotional speech, an acceptance speech for his award. He says, I'm not a perfect person. I'm not a perfect artist, and I'm not a perfect Christian. I'm not a perfect husband. And I was thinking to myself, and then there was a couple of chuckles on when he said it. And you guys know I'm not a perfect father. There was a video, unfortunately, that went viral with Kurt Franklin, and he was, really telling his son what was the deal. And people were thinking, oh my goodness, he's using language, he's upset. And I'm thinking, for folks that perform gospel music, we fight hard to live the gospel, but we are in this human body and it's sinful. So his wife looked on him along with other folks that are fans. And here's the thing, there's Tyler Perry and there's Kurt Franklin. And when I compare those two, I think the two of them, he has employed a lot of folks in gospel. Tyler Perry has employed a lot of folks that are actors. I get it. But the Icon Award that was given out that was most memorable to me for the night was the award that got given out to Jamie Foxx. Now, you see, now I said Stevie Wonder is coming back. We had mentioned him as one of the folks in R&B that has really contributed and given a lot to other artists, as well as performing and doing his own thing. And here's the thing. Stevie Wonder, y'all come in close. Stevie Wonder is one of the few people that owns his masters. Okay, don't tell everybody. So, so he presented the award to Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx was very, very emotional as others came, and this was his two daughters emotional during his acceptance speech. Now, something that Jamie mentioned during his acceptance speech is that he saw that the memoriam, and he says that could have easily been him. Myself and Coach Tony, we reviewed his Netflix special and talked about how we laughed and cried all at the same time. It was a lot going on in that special. Now, here in this, you see, literally, I captured Jamie Foxx saying, "Oh my gosh," when Jennifer Hudson came out and pretty much tore down the house. And the camera was kind of getting her just singing her heart out. Others that appeared, it was Craig Robinson. I had a picture. I was trying to get to that. Craig Robinson kind of introduced everyone. He was sitting at a piano, and I was thinking, how wonderful. You have a comedian, and that is Jamie, sitting at a piano and talking and kind of, being a narrator through, this is your life, Jamie, and here's some of this great music that you've blessed us with. Now, one of his biggest hits was performed by Babyface. And I said, Babyface is performing for Jamie Foxx? What? He had a very beautiful, a blinged out a baby grand piano that he was playing at. Then there was Tank. Then there was T-Pain. Then there was Dougie Fresh. I was thinking, wow. And then, of course, Jennifer Hudson, just kind of a plethora of folks that was, willing to just show love to Jamie. And of course, yeah, he deserves the icon. And that's him getting emotional, looking at folks perform and doing the medley of some of his biggest hits. And so also Kevin Hart opened up the show. I meant to mention that. And this is him joking around with the best hip hop album that went to everyone's favorite or not favorite, Kendrick Lamar. And so he said, hey, you won some awards. Here's some awards we're giving back to you. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, he's that popular? Yes, Kendrick Lamar is that popular. That's that's kind of how that is. The one thing that I wanted to share was that there were other major winners of the BET Awards, but one moment that was, and I want to make sure that I get to this, her name, and she is a new artist, is I believe Doshi. I think that's how you pronounce her name. And I think she was an independent artist that came out, I want to say in 2016. And so let me make sure I bring her up here, because I remember I did grab a picture of her. Now, her acceptance speech on last night was beautiful. And it's like she got right to the point of things. So she was Best Female Hip Hop Artist. That's what she was awarded with. But she used her thank you time to talk about the riots that were happening, not riots, but the protests that were happening outside. This was the BET Awards was recorded in Los Angeles in the live section. I think it was at the Peacock Theater. I think that's where they said they had it. And Doshi uses her time to talk about how our president is using the Marines and the National Guard to break up protesting. And a lot of this protest is unfortunately, I guess, happening against him and some of his policies. Now, I was discussing this with a few friends of mine. I was like, so what's going to happen? Is she going to be retaliated against for speaking up at an award show? And a lot of artists, usually when they do speak up, there is no repercussions. There isn't anything that happens. But she's just getting started in her career. And Mark says she's amazing. Yes, she is. And that acceptance speech, you guys can go to BET on YouTube, and you could see the clips from the show. That's where I got all of my information from. I didn't get a chance to watch it straight through. When I saw her acceptance speech, I was like, you go, girl. Thank you so much for using your platform to literally open it up and say, we need to talk about what's happening. And I want to give a voice to the voiceless. And she mentioned a lot of different genres of people that don't have a voice. And so when I saw her perform, I think earlier this year at the Grammys, I said, oh, this is a young lady that I'm definitely going to pay attention to. And here's the thing, when you are grinding as long as some of these artists and they don't get well known until like 7 or 10 years later, like her, it happens. And you just have to you go ahead and put that out there. And so, yeah, I'm glad she used her thank you moments to say something about it all. Oh my goodness. But The BET Awards is available on streaming like the Tony Awards on Paramount Plus. And if you guys want to check it out, you can. And because I only did a brushing of what happened, there was so much that happened. I want to make sure that I'll swing back to the awards in a second. I want to make sure that I talk about some of the women that are in R&B. We'll just do that. I covered the men. I talked about some of our R&B cooners that are male. Kind of the groups. We probably have to do a part 2 because R&B is just so vast. So that's Chloe and Halle. So this is the new school for me. Jasmine Sullivan and her. Now between all of these young ladies, they have probably anywhere between 10 to 20 hits between, and maybe a little bit more. Her got into acting not too long ago, and also I believe Jasmine Sullivan has won some BET awards, as well as I think she's also won a Grammy. You guys remember Halle Bailey? She was in one of the Disney productions of The Little Mermaid. And like I said, I think her sister Chloe is now singing solo, but I just want to say something. There's a lot of people that are not doing, I want to call it group singing. Like, that's not happening. Group singing is not happening anymore. People are solo artists. So, but some of the women artists that I like, and this is, like I said, I can't cover everybody. I wish I could. I could just name them and grab them out of the hat. One of my favorite 2 artists when I was in college was In Vogue and TLC. Now, TLC, a lot of people would consider their music pop, but to me, all of the R&B stations played them when they first came out. I Ain't Too Proud to Beg, Baby, 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 Crazy, Sexy, Cool. You know, all of their songs, and then their remake, If I Was Your Girlfriend from Prince. Oh, love that. In Vogue, of course. I did not know they had recently interviewed one of the members of In Vogue, and they said that when they did the intro to Hold On, which was it was them singing a Jackson 5 classic. What was that? When I Had You. When they sang that was supposed to be taken off. And one of the folks that had that song released to the radio station, they left it on, and it just became a part of it. So if you guys remember the music video for that, they start with that. And very tragically, we lost Left Eye in 2002. And I know that there have been other alliterations of TLC, but I definitely know T-Boz and Chili. They still talk, they still perform where they can. And I just have a lot of respect because sickle cell anemia is what affects T-Boz and affected a lot of her performing when she couldn't perform or when she had to rest. And so she's a living miracle, ladies and gentlemen, because sickle cell anemia can usually take you out after a few years or a few decades. And you hear her story, she could testify. And now with In Vogue, we had Dawn Robinson. Yeah, I reached out to her and complimented something that she did. I complimented her being a part of another group called Lucy Pearl, and she responded back on Instagram. Well, now these young ladies are on tour, In Vogue, and they have a new member. This is the version without the new member. And then they brought, and then Maxine came back to the group, which is really cool. I think Dawn has come back, but I have to confirm that. But it's just so many wonderful girl groups that represent R&B. And I'm trying to think of girl groups that are current. You guys help me out. I don't know them. I mentioned Chloe and Halle, and that's who I know. It's those 2 girls. But we're dealing strictly with R&B, and that's where we're at. And of course, if I was to mention a vocalist on the male side, it's Luther Vandross, R&B crooner. He is the king. But his queen in my eyes, would be this young lady, and that would be Anita Baker. This is one of my favorite albums. It's Rapture. Yes, and you guys, when I say album, I mean there's a record inside of here, ladies. I still got the plastic on here. What was my favorite on here? Same Old Love, No One in the World, Caught Up in the Rapture. I just, R&B, adult contemporary. This was the queen for me. This was the queen. So I loved how she sang, what she sang about. It was all about, and to me, R&B always, it's a good thing. It highlights love. If nothing else, it highlights love. And if you're not trying to highlight love, then why are you around? Oh my goodness. It is really hilarious. But I have to say, guys, for R&B guys, I want to make sure that I talk about this. We talked about this last week. And I'll go ahead and close out with this. The number one movie streaming right now on Netflix is what me and Coach Tony preview, which is Straw. Did you guys see this movie over the weekend? Did you guys see it? I got a chance to watch it I watched it with a good friend of mine over the weekend, and I have to say, powerful. I was very, very shocked by this film. A lot of criticism, as we read last week, really talked about, Tyler's tapping into the trauma of the Black woman, and it's horrible, and he's exploiting them, and yada yada yada. And I was thinking, okay, well let's see what he's talking about. Now, Kevin mentions in the chat, he says, I saw Straw. I agree with you, Val. It was powerful. Love the twist. And here, I got this from Tyler Perry's Facebook post, where he highlights the three women: Taraji P. Henson, who plays Janiyah, one of the main characters. I just want to do what's right to fight for my baby. Then you have Tiana Taylor as Detective. Why can't I see that? Detective Raymond. This is not your average bank robber. And then, of course, Sherry Shepherd, I am here with you. Sherry Shepherd steals so many scenes, and to hear the compliments between both actresses is phenomenal. So I usually don't go this hard in recommending a film, because Tyler has disappointed me in some way, some shape, form, or another. But this is one of those films where it doesn't disappoint. And I was trying not to cry. Oh my gosh, I was trying not to cry, because the real twist is the real reason why it's sad, or you feel something. And I won't even mention, if I mention the word, you'll be like, well, what do you mean by that? You have to see the film. You'll have to see the film. At the BET Awards, Tyler was there, and this was, I think that last week, Tiana, Sherry, and Taraji, they went ahead and did this. Very astutely, Tyler at the awards said, I've made more Black millionaires than any studio in this city combined, because I'm leaving footprints. All right, Tyler. A lot of the actors, especially the ones that have been acting for a while, have always complimented Tyler for what he has done for them, which is absolutely phenomenal. And this is him, kind of giving that compliment and letting people know, I know you all are probably criticizing me, but I employ people, ladies and gentlemen. Don't jump on my case. Oh my gosh. Well, our R&B look, we probably have to do a part 2, because there are too many artists that I'm leaving out of this conversation. I don't like doing that. I don't like doing that. So I have to make sure that I definitely include it in like a part 2 of R&B. And I did groups, I did men groups, I did women groups, I did solo artists. If I think about Anthony Hamilton, Maxwell, if I think about other singing artists. Now, would I consider Jody Watley R&B? She started off with an R&B group, Shalimar. There's so many folks to think about and to include into this conversation. And then, of course, the new artists that are out. I am checking for you. Someone has to recommend me to you. I'll just put it out there. Someone has to recommend me to you. That's how that works. And that's how it's always going to work. Oh my goodness, you guys. Thank you so very much for joining me on this episode of Interludes Extra Presents Talk on Tuesday. Coach will be back on next week. But of course, we want to make sure that we let you know who he's going to have on next week. It was supposed to be this week, but Coach is coaching. That's what he does. He's a coach. That's how it works. But of course, we're really excited that we're about to have one of his friends to come on. And I want to make sure I get his name right. He's known as, I think Coach Dodie Dunson. He is going to be our guest for the Pull Up Podcast show on next Monday. And so we're excited to have him come on. And so that'll be fun to see it. And he's actually coaching here in Illinois, which is wonderful. So we're going to have him come on. And of course, we're excited about Coach Tony having his own Instagram. If you are not following Coach, please do so. It's the Pull Up Podcast show at IG. You can scan the QR code there and start following him as he puts more and more things up and letting you guys know what he's going to be doing. The book is now available. The physical book is now available. That's on purelighthouse.media.com. Yeah, thank you. Mark is saying it. The coach is coaching. That is what he's doing. The coach is coaching. You can get the ebook, but you know what? It's time for the real book. So I'm excited to let you guys know that the real book is available. I will be signing 50 copies of these. When these sell out, we'll see. The print book is now available, and we're really excited that you guys are supporting this, which is wonderful. And then, of course, patreon.com/interludes. Make sure that you are coming there. We got a few people that are members. You can join for free and see some things. But of course, I do stand up, and I'm going back to doing stand up, but a lot of that shows up on our membership page, patreon.com. And of course, we want to thank everyone that is watching on LinkedIn who have joined our Interludes newsletter and also is following Pure Lighthouse Media on LinkedIn. That's amazing. Thank you guys so very much for that. And we're closing out another edition of Interludes Extra Presents Talk on Tuesday. Man, oh man, we hope to see you on next week. Next week, we'll have a special guest, and we are going to be doing the genre of what? Hip hop. June is Black Music Month, and we're so excited that you're going to be joining us on next week. But until then, we hope that you guys we'll see you guys very, very soon. And here we go. Peace.